Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. This is the first video that I am shooting with my brand new phone camera, so please bear with me. I am noticing there's it's a wider angle, the camera lens. I'm just getting used to that. I'm gonna try and figure out, what makes it look best angle-wise and everything, but I'm very excited to have a higher quality camera to shoot videos. But I'm not going to be shooting the video with this background for the most part today because it's just not going to be the most practical. So I'm going to move you guys over here to my old background because I'm going to be packaging some plants with you today that I sold on my Etsy shop. And practically this just makes the most sense. Nutmeg is here behind me. I don't know if he's gonna stay there or move. I have made some changes to this area, which you can kind of see. I've put in some shelves up there. I'm planning on putting something lower about this level as well, but it's all work in progress in this plant room. But this is just going to be easier for me today, putting together the boxes, and I'll just talk to you a little bit about my shop because I did have some questions about it and people actually asked me to talk about my shop more on this channel, but it was during the winter when I wasn't selling anything, so I figured now that it's spring, that I have my first sales of the year, it's a good time to talk about it. So I have a couple plants that I sold. They're going to be right here. I sold this Hoya Carnosa Wilbur Graves China. This is a very low splash one, so I offered it at a very deep discount. And then I sold this cutie here. This is the Philodendron Heartleaf Variegated. I love this one. I think the variegation on this particular specimen is great, so I'm very happy it is going to a new home. The first thing I like to make sure is that these are well watered, but they're also not watered right before I pack them. So I try to make sure there's no excess water in the bottom, which I've already done. The next thing I'm going to do, or I typically do, I've already done this, is I pick out a couple of freebies. So I have two little Hoyas as freebies today. I have this Hoya species Louse. I don't sell single leaf Hoya cuttings, but sometimes I will add one as a freebie just because they're free. And sometimes I don't have anything else to give away. I also have this Hoya Carnosa Crimson Queen. So those are going to be the freebies and the plants that I have sold. I typically on Etsy, I will do a freebie with every order. There might be a couple orders that I miss because sometimes I run out of freebies. They're usually from more common plants, I would say, like the Carnosa Crimson Queen is a common one that I give away as a freebie. A lot of times I'll do cuttings of my Philodendron Brazil that are unrooted, just things that are really common that I need to chop. Like I'm constantly in need of chopping that plant, so they're nice to give away as freebies. Other things like this Hoya species Louse, I have a lot of this. I already have 10 cuttings up on my Etsy page for sale, so I don't really need any more right now, so I'm fine giving away one or two. I probably don't give away too many that I have actively listed for sale, but I think it's nice to give a little freebie. Customers really seem to like it. It makes them happy. You get a little surprise in your box. So all around, it's a good thing. But as far as packing them go, I have a few supplies that I use. I have the plastic wrap, scissors, a Sharpie, two different types of tape, packing tape and regular tape. You'll see why later. And then I have boxes, bubble wrap, all those sorts of things. Floof, all the floof, all the time. I just love floof. So that is what I like to gather before I do anything else. That is my first step. I usually wake up Monday morning with like orders, and either I'll get it together the night before if I see I have them Sunday, or Monday morning, the first thing I do is I gather all of the materials because I only ship Monday through Wednesday. I don't like the idea of plants sitting over the weekend, so I like to ship earlier in the week, and that way things just work out. I do like to get the plants also packaged and secured before I put them in the box. So the first thing I do is I take a bit of plastic wrap. This might be hard because I don't have a table that's high, but I'm gonna try to show you as best I can. I do have a video that I go in depth about how I package each plant as well, that I go through each step and sort of show. So I'll try to do my best here, but you can reference that video as well if you want some packaging plants for shipping kind of tips. but I like to secure the plant all the way around with the plastic wrap. This just makes it easier to ship. It creates less of a mess. It's easier to open. I have seen like Sans Hoyas does a cotton pad, which I really like that method as well. It's very good at keeping the mess out. I also have just been doing this forever and I really like it, so that's what I'm going to do. So I kind of get it all tightly secured around. Typically my cuttings do not have drainage holes unless somebody specifically asks for it or it is a plant that is bigger. I'll do that sometimes, but generally with a cutting, I like to have a lot of humidity at the bottom for root growth. So I put them in these little condiment cups where they can grow roots really nicely. And I do have a layer of leca at the bottom, which kind of provides that drainage aspect without having to have drainage holes. If people ask, I will cut drainage holes in the bottom of the cup. I don't mind doing that at all. It's just how I prefer propagating my plants. These are all at the point where they have plenty of roots though. I don't list unrooted cuttings either. So I like to just make sure that's all secure. So I have tape around here just to keep that in place. I don't want the plastic wrap going anywhere. I also like to make sure there's a little bit of breathing room up here just so that there's no chance of, or a low chance really, of rot. You never know what to expect with the mail. You know, weather is crazy, USPS is crazy, so I just try to give these plants the optimal chance of arriving safe and sound. The other thing I like to do is I like to take my Sharpie and label each plant that I'm shipping, including the freebies. Some Hoya tend to look really similar, so I like to label them just in case somebody doesn't really know what they're getting. I also used to sell a lot of alocasia corms, so I would label each and every one that I packaged up. I do package them differently than Hoyas. I use smaller condiment cups with lids and then I put little holes in there. So I just like to label as a general rule. Some people might be buying a plant that they're not familiar with in general, so adding a little label just doesn't hurt, you know? And I put it on the tape. That way, if they don't want it on the cup itself, they can just rip it right off. They could put the tape on the cup later. They could make their own label. This is just easy. And I don't have to deal with people being like, well, I didn't want this. This way you can kind of decide what you want to do with it. So this one is Hoya Wilbur Graves, China. So that is what I do to each individual plant. That's got a label on it now. It is nice and secure. The only thing I'm gonna have to worry about after doing this is making sure the leaves aren't touching anything, that there's minimal chance of anything breaking off once it gets into the box. But it's pretty straightforward. I like to do this for every single plant, including the freebies. Sometimes the freebies will go in smaller cups than these 5-ounce ones. I think I have 3-ounce as well. I have lots of different sizes. I collect them when I get takeout or something, which I don't do too often, but I can buy them at my local H-E-B as well. I do typically buy these 5-ounce ones for the shop, but the smaller ones I usually don't have to buy because I end up receiving them fairly often whenever I get plant mail or whatnot. So this is the only thing I have to worry about buying. So I don't really mind having to purchase it every so often. But yeah, that's just what I'm going to do for all 4 plants that I have here. These are going to be in 2 separate packages, so 1 freebie per package. But a little bit about my shop. I started it in 2021, I believe, back when the plant craze was in full swing all across the country, I guess, or the world. I feel like 2021 was peak houseplant ownership anyway. So I started it, and looking back, a lot of the plants I was offering back then were very common, but everybody just wanted a plant. So it did start to take off a little bit, I guess, in my eyes. I know it's not a really big shop or anything. I don't make crazy amounts of money, but it does make me happy. I really like propagating plants. I love seeing the new growth, the new roots, the whole 9 yards. And I'm hoping one day, maybe when my husband gets out of the army, I could have like my own little brick and mortar plant shop, but that's just like a silly little dream right now. It's nice to think about, and this keeps me busy. There's not too much to do in terms of work where I live. So I do have a sort of freelance type of job as well as doing this. Those are my main sources of income, so it helps pay the bills, things like that, and I have a lot of fun doing it, which is something that's very important to me. So that's just what I do. It's why I got into it. And Etsy, I feel like for all of its flaws, is a decent platform. They do have a very good marketing algorithm, so I don't have to do anything, and it just puts me in searches, especially since Hoya are pretty popular, I would say. I mostly sell Hoya, and if I put in the right keywords, people will find them. I can see they now have released these seller stats, so I can see more of what is popular in terms of the Hoya and what's not. So I can kind of see, okay, maybe I should propagate this plant more often, or buyers really aren't interested in this plant, so I'm just gonna grow it out for myself. Things like that. I have had plants that sell out immediately. I have had plants that take 6 months to sell. It's all sort of like a guessing game with the trends and the marketing, and you really have to pay close attention to what you're doing in order to make some money. I do like to sort of do some research on the plants that I'm going to sell before I list them. I like to see, you know, how quickly are they selling? Are they really popular? Are they going for X amount of dollars versus this? And I try to set my prices either at the average or a little bit below, depending on the plant. Now I will have things like this low variegation Wilbur Graves. I'm obviously going to put this below the average of what people are selling these plants, because it's not the greatest specimen. The mother plant I have is much better. This one just didn't work out that way, so I'd rather offer it for a better price, or if that wasn't going to sell, I probably would have done it as a freebie down the road. But somebody wants to give it a shot. It does have some splash. It could get more splashy in the future just because it came from a high variegation parent plant. So all of those things are things that I consider when I am doing the plants for my shop. I do have it on Etsy. I will try to sell some plants on Instagram every so often, but I don't know, it's not working out as well selling them on Instagram right now. The story views, I try to do a story sale, but the views when I do sales are about 1/3 of what I normally get for my Instagram stories. So I don't know if that's being suppressed somehow, or my followers just aren't interested in buying plants, which is totally fine because I have a lot more success on Etsy. And right now, being a small shop, I'm really just selling cuttings of my plants that are growing too big or that I want to start over. I might have a plant that's just growing one long vine and I want it to be more bushy. So I will cut that up. I will start it over, and maybe half of the cuttings I sell, half the cuttings I keep. It sort of depends on what I'm looking for, with the goal of like my personal mother plants. I have some that just grow really awkwardly, so I chop them back and see what'll happen the next time that they start growing, all those sorts of things. But I'm really just selling extra cuttings from my own personal collection at this point. I don't really have plants that I've bought just to sell. I do occasionally sell plants also that I fell out of love with. Maybe I bought it without ever seeing it in person. I really liked it at one point. I don't like it anymore. Those are gonna be bigger, and I'll just sell them off and be done with that plant forever. And it's really nice seeing them go to a better home of somebody that's gonna love them more than I ever would. And plants like that, where they are healthy, they're bigger, I would feel really bad tossing them. So I'll just sell them, get rid of them. So that's a little bit about my shop and what it is. I do also sometimes make art, and I'll post it on there. I have made some Hydro Flask water bottles. I've done oil paintings, things like that. I did go to art school, so sometimes I'll dabble in that. I like to experiment with art sometimes, but a lot of my free time lately has been taken up by the plants and my garden out back, so art has been a little bit on the back burner as of late. Now that the plants are all packaged up in their little situations so that none of the moss spills out or anything, I do have some boxes that I'm trying to like see what would go best and where. Over the entire winter, I save up boxes and I put them in my closet in this room because there are certain boxes that are just perfect. Like this that I get my cat food in for my adorable little babies. Nutmeg is like just out of frame. You can kind of see him right here. But this box, perfect for shipping 2 plants. So if somebody orders one and I'll put in a freebie, this is the best size ever for the little condiment cups. So I'll go ahead and put these in here. Oh, I might not, no, I'm not gonna do this one just because it's got more coming out and the leaves are fragile. So I think I'll do the Wilbur Graves and the species louse with it. I like to play around with the arrangements of the plants in here. I want to get whatever is best for them. So I don't know if I can show you all. That's what it looks like on the inside right now. And then I like to put in a lot of floof, which I save every time I get a package. I save the floof. I put in the floof. I put in things to make the plants more stable in the box. I really just don't want movement as much as possible. I want these plants to be secure. I don't want the leaves to touch the sides of the box if at all possible as well. I just really want stability in the shipping because the less movement of the plants, the less likely they are to get damaged. So I like to mostly use floof. That is my favorite thing. If I could just only use floof, I would. In some boxes I do. I will only use the floof in there, but I will use bubble wrap and some things like that. I have a little piece of bubble wrap here, so I'm gonna try and put that in this corner where I have a lot more space, and that will hopefully help stop that plant from moving too much. A little bit of movement is fine. I just really don't want a lot of movement. So I'm going to stuff all of that, and you can almost overstuff with the polyfill and it will shrink down quite a lot once you get it in the box. So I like to get it all filled up like this. The next thing I do is add the invoice and a handwritten note. I'm not going to show the invoice because it's got addresses and things on it, but every single order gets the invoice and the handwritten note. If the order is a gift, the invoice will look a little different. I won't have prices or anything on it. But I will just fit those in there as well. And then I think we are ready for the shake test. So I just kind of pretend like it's closed up, shake it. There's a little bit of movement on the one side. So I'm going to put in a little bit more floof on that side. See if that helps. Okay, that helped a little bit. There's a tiny bit of shaking, but not a lot. So I think I'm comfortable with that. And then I will save the packing slip to put on later. Let me just close this up really quick, and the first box is done. On to the second box I go. This one's a little bit more square, but I think it will work for what I'm trying to do. Let me just put these in here as a test. Ooh, no. Okay, it's a little bit too tight. I'm gonna have to go ahead and get a different box. I found a box, the one I used before, basically just another one of it, and I think I can make it work just after I put in the other plants. I could see, I mean, this is my first sale of the year, so I'm getting back into the swing of it. So I think I can fit them in. Yeah, they're a little tight, but I think it'll work. It's almost like the one is protecting the other. So just move some leaves around, and that's what it looks like on the inside. I think it'll work okay. I'll just make sure to put floof in between. I had to get out my bag. So I'll put floof in between all of the little leaves, and hopefully they will be okay. I think they will be. I think I am just gonna mostly fill this up with floof though. And I'll try to have pot touching sort of the opposite side of the box. I'd rather have them be a little bit snug than too loose. I do run into a problem like mid to late summer where I'm out of boxes. So a lot of them end up being very loose, and then you use a lot more materials and it gets to be more heavy. I guess the weight is higher and it's just not ideal. So this way, if I can fit all the different things in here, I think it'll work. Just trying to be mindful of each individual leaf on the philodendron and putting floof in between each one. That way they will be a lot more secure, they'll be happier. And it's not like leaves touching is necessarily a bad thing. I just don't want them to be really squished in any way. And that's sort of what the floof does. It's very soft, it's very gentle, and it will keep all of these leaves in check pretty much. So we're getting there. Got a little bit more floof to add, and they should arrive just fine. Safe and sound. Nothing broke while I was packing it in there. And that'll be the same thing. I will add the note and the invoice, and it'll be all packed up and good to go. Just some tape, and this is all finished here. We've got both boxes ready to go. I usually just take them to the post office myself because I live in Texas, and in case you didn't know, it gets really hot here. The weather is very unpredictable in the springtime, and I just don't trust leaving them on my porch for a pickup. I live 1.2 miles away from the post office, so I just go there myself and I take care of this. I put them in the drop bin. If I do it in the afternoon, they're usually out by evening or the next morning. If I do it in the morning, they're out by the afternoon. So it's pretty easy and it's not really difficult to do at all. I don't mind it. I usually go on my way to the gym. I usually go to the gym around lunchtime, or I'll go before I have my afternoon clients. So it works, you know? I don't mind it at all. It's fine to do, and it's nice to get out of the house and just go out and do things. That is it for my kind of shop intro, packaging plant, sort of a refresher on how I do that. All of the things about my Etsy shop. And if I forgot to mention this, the link to the shop is in the description of every single video on my channel if you would like to check it out. I really appreciate it. I try to offer the healthiest cuttings that I can, and it's just fun for me. So it's just another thing to keep me busy, another thing to do. I enjoy doing it. Nutmeg really likes to help me package them up. He loves the bubble wrap. He loves to sit in the boxes. He's just the most helpful little guy. But if you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.